Welcome back to the Mason clan. In this episode, you're joining us on our 2-week tour of Germany and Austria. But first is our drive from Lancashire to our overnight stop, the Chef de Mumbai, which is a couple of miles outside of Dover. We've used the Chef de Mumbai a few times before. Details can be found on Parks for Night, and we can highly recommend the masala fries. After a peaceful night, we drove the couple of miles down to Dover Ferry Port, and for this crossing we're using Irish ferries for the first time. Check-in was straightforward, except for finding Oscar's chick, which had moved from its usual place, but we were soon through and waiting to board the ferry. We booked our crossing a couple of months in advance at a cost of £269. This included our dogs, and on the return leg of our journey, we're using the Club Class Lounge. For Irish ferries, the dogs stay in the motorhome, and at check-in you're given a label to display that identifies your vehicles as holding pets. It's just a 90-minute crossing to Calais, and our dogs will be fine for that journey. Once on board, we headed for the restaurant. Here you can have a continental breakfast or a full cooked breakfast. We went for the full English, along with many other people on the early morning ferry. The majority of the passengers were lorry drivers who took up the lounge areas, grabbing 40 winks. For us, after we'd eaten, we stretched our legs on the deck and had a look around the duty-free shop to grab some last-minute purchases. After a smooth crossing, we soon reached Calais and we're back in our motorhome and off the ship. We're travelling on a Saturday and the Monday here is a bank holiday, so please be aware, even if it's not a bank holiday in the UK, it could be one in Europe. For this trip, we have none of our stops booked ahead, which isn't unusual for us as we like to play things by ear. We did know we wanted to visit Munich and Salzburg, and a few other motorhomers had recommended stops there. Our first stop off was going to be somewhere around Frankfurt, and we'd had some wineries recommended. So that's the plan for the next couple of nights. Away from the Autobahn, the roads led us through the countryside of the Rhine region, and we're heading to a small village of Hillesheim, which is just southwest of Mainz and Frankfurt. Thankfully, our older son is travelling with us and he has more German than I do. We were soon parked by the winery's vending machine, which was full of wine. What a perfect pitch! So first we've had to put our driving licence in to prove our age for ID purposes, and then it's literally using your card at the vending machine and making your selection. Quite a few of these are award winning too. Just like this one, a silver award. There was also other local products available to buy in a hut at the side of the vending machine. The winery costs €20 a night, and that includes electricity. The following day we cycled to the neighbouring town of Hillesheim, where we were able to catch the train into Mainz. The ticket we bought online, and it was €26 for a group day return ticket. Our son wasn't on an electric bike, and there was times he had to get a helping hand up some of the hills. The train was actually quite busy for a Sunday with plenty of football fans on board. It did have us a little worried about what we were going to find once we got to Mainz. Leaving the train station and football fans behind, we came across the Fastnachtbrunnen water fountain. Mainz is a charming old town with plenty of little squares to discover as you wander the streets. We took a stop for lunch on one of them, and for me, I had asparagus, which was their ingredient of the month. After lunch, we continued on to another square with, again, another fountain, and that took us to the impressive cathedral. St Martin's is a huge red sandstone cathedral, and it really stands out from the surrounding buildings. We took a walk into the courtyard garden, and as we were heading around the square, there was a massive clap of thunder, so we headed inside along with a lot of other people. I wonder if that was God trying to tell us something. Back outside, and the weather still hadn't improved, so we took a wander through the old town towards the train station. We're using the Roman theatre station to go back to Hillesheim. This is actually built on the site of a Roman theatre, with some of it still visible at the side of the platform. The trains were very good and easy to use. Monday is a bank holiday, and we're back on the road, leaving the Rhine region behind and heading for Munich. Our plan is to stop at the Allianz Stadium. Unfortunately, due to the Euros taking place, the parking for motorhomes at the football stadium had been stopped on the Saturday. So a quick look on Park for Night, and we'd come up with Campingplatz Neubruck. Now, it wasn't the nicest drive up to the campsite, but we were soon pitched, and even better still, there was a great field at the side where our dogs could go for a good run. From our campsite, we caught a bus to the underground train station where we were able to buy our tickets at one of the machines to get into the city. You need to select the zones that you require for the city and then make payment in the machine for your tickets. There is a map near the machine that shows you the different areas zoned for the city. Our ticket was just over €20 for the three of us for the day. I will mention that we couldn't get any of our bank cards to authorise payments for this ticket, so we ended up having to use cash. And this is something we saw more and more as we travelled Germany. Some of the cafes and shops had signs up saying payment by cash only. Although our younger son isn't travelling with us, he had given us instructions to pick up a Jamal Musiala top for him from the Bayern Munich shop. So after making our purchase, we headed to the main square to find the ladies' team celebrating their title win. On the Marienplatz is the new city hall which you can walk through. From here we wanted some lunch and, well, it had to be a bratwurst, so we headed over to the Victualienmarkt, which is the old farmers market, and there's a beer garden in the middle there where you can get plenty of bratwurst. Now, obviously, sausages of this size need washing down, so there was only one thing for it. We needed to find a beer hall, and our son already knew which one we were heading for. I'm not a beer drinker back home, but I'm definitely learning what I like and what I don't this trip. And you don't need to stop for a drink. There was plenty of people wandering through just soaking up the atmosphere. Munich is quite a sprawling city and there's some real high-end shops here as well. For us though, it was time to get back on the underground and head back to our motorhome, the Hof. And don't even give this guy eye contact, he'll be playing just for you, waiting for his tip. Our campsite at Munich was €27 a night with electricity. Close by is a supermarket and fuel. We stocked up and the following day we were back on the road heading to Austria. Here we needed to stop at the services to pick up a go box for our motorhome. A go box is required in Austria for vehicles over 3.5 tonne. The first services we stopped at, we couldn't get the guy at the till to understand we weren't Ukrainian, we were from the United Kingdoms. So he sent us packing and we moved on to the next services where we picked up and topped up our go box without any problem. We really regretted not stopping at Salzburg on our way back from Lake Bled a few years ago. This whole trip has been built around visiting the city and we're using the Stellplatz, which is just on the outskirts. There's a bus stop across the road which takes you right into the centre. We started our afternoon in Salzburg with a coffee due to the passing rain shower. Now Salzburg straddles the Salzach River. This was flowing really high. There'd been a lot of rain in Europe just before we travelled. The rivers in Germany were high too, and we'd heard that some campsites had been evacuated that were nearby. So back to Salzburg. We crossed over the river into the old town and our tip is headed to the Modern Art Museum and for a couple of euros take the lift up to the top of the cliff. Once out of the lift we took the cliff top path across to the castle. There's great views both sides of the city and the mountains. And if you do fancy having a look around the castle and other attractions in the city, it will be worth you looking for the Salzburg card, which is approximately €30 for a day for one adult. This gives you access to attractions and public transport. We headed down the steps from the castle into the old town and past Mozart's birthplace, which unbelievably has a spa shop in the basement of it now. We crossed back over the river into the impressive Mirabelle Gardens, and from here we were able to find a local hotel that had a rooftop restaurant with great views across the city. The Amala Hotel also has a grotto-themed beer cellar in the basement. With the storm brewing, we headed back to the motorhome at the Stellplatz. Now the Stellplatz is €30 for 24 hours plus your tourist tax on top of that. There is a good motorhome service point area, and there's also facilities like a shower and a coffee machine for you. A bread van does stop off in the morning, so you can stock up on pastries, and we found an Aldi supermarket close by too. Our original thought had been to go on to Vienna after Salzburg, but time was getting the better of us, so we turned right and dipped into Germany for a night at Konigsee. A quick search on parks for night, and about a 5-minute walk from the lake is a car park that allows overnighting. It's €25 though for the 24-hour period. The natural lake is a tourist hotspot, so we left the crowds behind and went up the west side with the plans to walk to the Schreimbach Falls. On our way there, we met a local couple who told us the path was closed, but suggested it was worth the walk to a viewing platform. So that's where we headed, and from there we could see all the way up the lake to St. Bartholomew. It didn't disappoint, even though the terrain wasn't the easiest to negotiate with the dogs. The Schreimbach waterfalls, when in full flow, have infinity pools you can bathe in, and the lake is said to be the cleanest in Germany, with the boats being electrically powered. And to be honest, if we'd not had our dogs with us, we'd have jumped on one of those boats for a ride around the lake. Heading back down the trail, the dogs stopped to cool their paws before we made a stop to have some lunch and a few beers. Well, we'd earned them after that trek, obviously. From Konigsee, you're also able to take a 20-minute ride by bus up to the Eagle's Nest, which was Hitler's retreat in the mountains. The following morning, we had a chat over breakfast of what to do and where to head. Now, we wanted somewhere for the weekend where we could spread out and relax a bit, and there was some van chores that needed doing. So a quick look on the map, and we were heading for the lake of Achensee, which is back in Austria. The drive there took us in and out of the border of Germany and Austria quite a few times. It's not somewhere we've visited before, so we had no stop in mind. So once again, park for night is our friend. Achensee is in the Tyrol mountain region of Austria, quite close to the German border, and it's in between Innsbruck and Salzburg. We headed up the mountain hoping to find a campsite with a pitch near the lake, and we were in luck. We grabbed one at Achensee Wimmer. On arrival, they made us aware there was only a couple of pitches available, and we knew on a Friday, in a resort like this, we were pushing our luck to get anything. So we were happily pitched and went off exploring around the beautiful blue lake. On the campsite close to our pitch was a gate which led on to a path and cycleway that goes around the lake. There's also trains and a dog-friendly area around the lake, and there's a couple of cable cars you can take up, and we had one of those planned for tomorrow. Whilst out on a walk with our dogs along the lake, we spotted a waterfall up on the mountainside. Making inquiries with the campsite reception, they told us that was the smaller waterfall, and there was an even bigger one called the Delfasser Fall. So we made plans to walk the trails up to the waterfalls. There is a separate YouTube video for this hike that we took. Although the weather wasn't the best on the day we arrived, the lake was still being well used by the kite surfers. While staying in the area, we had use of the Achensee holiday card. Now this gives us discount to attractions in the area and free use of public transport. The campsite is near the small town of Munich. This has a great leisure facility complex, children's play area, there was an all-weather sports area, and there's also a cable car up to the mountain range. Now, using our holiday card, we got a 10% discount on travel on this. The cable car goes up the Rothenburg mountain range to a height of 1,831 metres. Now, from here, we took a further hike to a viewing platform, and there was plenty of the alpine choughs flying around our head up there. The walk took approximately 45 minutes. Now, the terrain wasn't great and the weather did come in, and you are going through snow to get to the viewing platform, but it was worth it. There's also plenty of other routes of varying difficulty in this mountain range for hikers to enjoy. And what there also is the Aerofan skyline, which is a 400-metre zip line. Now, our son really fancied doing this, but unfortunately the clouds coming in had put pay to it and it had been closed for the day. So we went off to one of the lodges to get some lunch and a refreshing beer before heading back down the mountain on the cable car. The following morning we woke to glorious sunshine, so we set off early on our hike to the Delfasser waterfalls, and they didn't disappoint. As I mentioned, we do have a separate YouTube video on this hike to the waterfalls. And just down there is the Hof on our campsite. We had no plans to waste this weather or our last full day at Achensee, so we jumped on the bikes and headed around the lake to find somewhere to have some lunch. The refreshing thing about Achensee is it hasn't been spoilt by tourism. Now, although I have no photos to prove this, we did go and use the leisure centre close to the campsite in the evening. We used our holiday discount card and got tickets to the penthouse spa area, which our son had worked out allowed no children in. And now this is a bonus. You get to that point in life where your kids are grown up and you don't need to deal with other people's children. So off we went up to the spa area, only to realise there was no clothing allowed. So yeah, we ended up back downstairs with the kids on the slides. Leaving Lake Achensee behind, it was time for us to start heading north and into Germany. And for us, we were going to go onto the Romantic Road. This starts in the south at Fussen and works its way north to Wurzburg. Our first stop we had planned was at Ulm. We're using the Stellplatz at Ulm. It was busy and we grabbed one of the last spots when we arrived at lunchtime. It's €14 a night and electricity is payable on top of that. The medieval walled city is about a 10-minute bike ride away along the River Danube. And don't miss out the beautifully decorated town hall covered in murals. And there's also a 16th century astronomical clock up there as well. But the reason we made a stop at Ulm was to visit the Minster, which has the tallest church steeple in the world at 161.53 metres. The one that was made out of Lego wasn't quite as big though. We really enjoyed our wander around Ulm. I will mention a lot of the cafes and restaurants did have signs saying cash only, so just take some euros with you. With the weather being nice, we obviously stopped for refreshments and took a wander along the busy city walls. Just a bit of extra info in regards to the Stellplatz. It was full when we were there, however there was plenty of extra motorhomes parking on the leisure centre car park just across the road. Our next stop is somewhere we've wanted to visit for a long time. It's at the crossroads of the Romantic Road and the Castle Road, the beautiful medieval town of Rothenburg ob der Tauber. We're on the Stellplatz again, which is €15 for 24 hours and well located just 5 minutes away from the walls of the town. The town is one of the more popular stops on the romantic route, and it's certainly worth doing an overnighter here. We found it much quieter in the evening. During the daytime there was coach loads of tourists. For us, we wandered down a side street and came across the Medieval Crime Museum, which is well worth the €9 entry fee. Some of the stuff in there is absolutely crazy. The town is encased by a medieval wall, which you're able to access through one of the preserved gatehouses or towers and take a walk around to give another view of the town. Once the day visitors have gone, the town is much quieter, and it's a good chance to grab those iconic photos that most people want. We headed up to the main square where we were quickly seated in a restaurant and enjoyed an evening meal. And from there, we joined the night watchman on his walking tour, where he gave some tall tales of the historical past of the town. We finished our evening with a beer, watching the sunset over the Tauber Valley before heading back to the Hof at the Stellplatz. For those of you that travel with pets, there are a couple of vets here. There's one in the walled part of the town, but we used one which was about a 20-minute walk from the Stellplatz. It wasn't cheap, but at least the worming job is done. We had tried vets in Ulm, but they were all busy. The next day we were off again, and we were planning to have a lunch stop at somewhere else on the romantic route. Now we ended up at Lauda-Konigshofen, and to be honest, it was quite disappointing. The write-up was quite good, a wine town with magnificent churches, but for us, we parked up on the outskirts, which is the positive. You can park for free for 3 days here, and headed under all the low bridges that you can't get motorhomes under into the town. But it was like a ghost town. We couldn't even find somewhere to eat for lunch. Still with an empty belly, we stopped at some services to enjoy some really good loaded fries. Back on the road, heading north again, and we went back to the winery we stayed at the first night. Well, we needed to top up on supplies. So back we went to Hillesheim. We just spent the one night at the winery as our trip was starting to come to an end, and we wanted to head up to Calais for a couple of nights on a campsite before getting our early morning ferry home. We were also aware that people were starting to head over for the upcoming D-Day celebrations too. Now, a favourite stop of ours near Calais is Chateau Gadspent, but I'd already emailed them to find out it was full. So a quick look on search for sites, and we got a pitch at Camping Pommiers de Trois Pays. This was a great little find. It is down some country lanes to get to it, but it had plenty of facilities. There was an enclosed dog area, a kids play area, there was barbecues you could use, and an on-site restaurant, which was great. It meant I wasn't cooking on our last night. There's also an indoor pool here. It's on the outskirts of a small village which has a great patisserie, and there's a pizza vending machine should you fancy a late night pizza. It's approximately a 40-minute drive from the campsite to Calais car ferry. Now, as I mentioned, we're using the club class lounge on our return leg. This is just a little taster of what you get in there. There was just 9 of us using this facility, and you do get free refreshments. I hope you've enjoyed joining us on our trip, and have fun planning your own.